Hey everybody, welcome to Behind the Scenes, a podcast where we talk about the intersection of art, culture, and big ideas. I am your host, Sean Malone, Creative Director for the Foundation for Economic Education and creator of Out of Frame. With me is Jennifer Maffasanti, Senior Writer and Editor for Out of Frame Shorts, and our Social Media Manager, Paul Nelson. How are you guys doing today?
Got the feels.
Got the feels.
Got the feels.
I have the feels.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of started getting to a Halloween episode.
Yes.
And we have like big, scary news. No, it's not really true. It's not scary news. It's actually awesome news in general. But Jen, how you doing?
Well, tomorrow is my last day at FEE.
Yeah, it is. Well, when we're recording this is.
Yes.
But yeah.
You'll be long gone by the time.
Yeah.
Bye. No, I have accepted the position of Director of Communications at the Libertas Institute in Utah.
It's awesome.
So
Yeah.
this is a very exciting opportunity. I am super pumped for what we're going to be accomplishing out there. But at the same time,
Yeah.
it's
Sad.
very bittersweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
You've been at FEE since 2016, 17?
Okay.
Well, yeah.
Story
so
of
there's
FEE,
a
of
thing.
Jen and FEE. I had a very short internship
Right.
at FEE in 2016,
Right.
which is where we first met.
Right.
The summer of 2016. And then I left and came back in September of 2017 to join the content team
Yeah.
there at FEE.
Which is, because it's a little bit of a strange term, but editorial.
Editorial
and
stuff.
Yeah, all the written articles and
Articles,
things that
yes.
happen on the website. Yeah.
And, stuck around, got
Yeah.
hired on as a permanent employee and
Edited, became primary proofreader and editor for a good
Yeah.
long while.
then became senior writer, swapped teams to media/marketing.
Yeah. Which was just really creative media at that point, not
Yeah,
even
pretty much.
properly combined yet.
And yeah, it's been
Yeah.
3 solid years. And I've done a lot of really cool things.
Yeah.
And I've gotten to know a lot of really amazing people, including the 2 fine gentlemen sitting here at this table with me.
I think
And
the stuff that you've done over the years, I mean, it's grown a lot too. So like when we first started talking, we started talking about script writing and helping to write certain like promo videos and invisible hands and things that we'd worked on together pretty early. If you guys haven't seen Invisible Hands, by the way, it's not that widely viewed as far as content that we have on the channel, but I really like it. And it's hosted by Kevin Lieber, who's a buddy of mine and also runs Vsauce 2.
yep.
And Kevin came out and did this great sort of series of like nuts and bolts economics education,
Yep.
6-part series that really, if you want to get a pretty good set of basics.
Yeah.
And Jen
It's
and
a
I
great series.
worked on that for a long time.
Worked on Common Sense Soapbox for a while too. We
Since 2017, 18, I guess 2018.
did
Yeah.
2018.
Yeah.
Did some very stressful video writing for a research project that
yeah.
FEE did. Some message testing.
My goodness.
There was a lot of head scratching involved in that
Yeah,
one.
yeah. That most people probably don't know much about either. But part of what my role has been over the last several years has been to run this big messaging research project. It ended last year, but part of that is we wrote 75, I believe, total,
Thereabouts.
and produced different iterations of stories. And I wrote the first handful of them, and then Jen and I wrote a handful of them together, and then Jen wrote a handful by herself. We actually ended up hiring somebody to write the last couple.
Yes, we did.
They were, that was a lot of work.
Oh,
It's a
man.
lot of videos, and it's a lot of like stress to try to figure out how to differentiate and how to
Based
write
on,
for different
just
languages.
on
Yeah.
audience type. We created whole cloth together, the Out of Frames shorts.
Yep.
And this podcast, we've been trying to get this podcast off the ground for a couple of years, you and I.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we've been talking about this for a long time. We haven't done, that many episodes. 3 months, almost 4 months worth at this point. But yeah, we were talking about it for a good year and a half, maybe.
At least, yeah.
Yeah.
And so it is still unclear whether or not I'm going to continue to appear on this podcast. It's going to depend on a lot of variables that I just don't have any real insight into right this moment. Regardless, podcast is going to look at least a little bit different.
A little bit. So you're not moving right away.
Not right away.
But
we still have a lot of logistical
For sure.
issues to take care of here in Atlanta before we can move our family all the way across the country.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
it's in motion. We're getting there. Probably another 3-4 months.
So if
the
we
goal.
do, just for listeners and viewers, more importantly, perhaps. Actually, listeners, you probably won't notice a difference if Jen keeps doing this.
Right.
It won't matter. But for people who are actually watching on the YouTube channel or watch via Patreon and stuff like that, Jen might become a disembodied head over on this TV back over here. That could very well happen.
Robot Jen.
Yeah,
Hey.
robot Jen.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Segway robot. Speaking of
Chinbot.
Genbot. Yeah, Genbot. A lot of common sense soapbox stuff people probably don't realize came from you, including obviously Genbot, which is very funny. But it's definitely going to be different. But you're probably not going to. So you're going to miss at least probably the next 2, regardless of what happens. We'll let everybody know, like for sure, like what the end decision is going to be.
As soon as we know, we will tell you. I assure you. But
it's very clear that you're definitely going to miss the next 2, I think, episodes because you're going to be in Utah probably when those get recorded. But
that's
figure that out.
That's what it's going to be.
Yeah.
I will still be helping you write Out of Frame shorts.
Yeah.
Which I'm pleased as punch about.
Me too.
I did not want to leave that project.
I've said this to many people so far, but I'll say it very publicly here. That show wouldn't continue. I couldn't do it. Like, I don't have enough time. There's just not enough. Just not enough time in the day, really, to do the Out of Frame shorts without your drafts of those. It's just literally not possible. So, I mean, if nothing else, like if you weren't doing it, it would probably take me 2-3 months before we could even spin that back up.
Right.
Yeah.
So it would be, I'm very glad that you're going to continue doing that.
Don't worry, fans.
Yeah.
That series isn't going anywhere.
No, and I'm glad. We put out, new one on the Czech Republic recently. The Mulan one, I think, is a great episode, and that was 95% yours, and then with a little bit of my rewrites. But and then what are we working on now? What are we working on now?
They Live.
Oh yeah, They Live. That's going to be maybe out by the time this. Maybe out. Maybe the next week.
Around about the same-ish time.
Going to come out soon. You'll listen to this episode, and then maybe we'll do one on John Carpenter's They Live and stuff. So there's a lot of good stuff coming. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But
well, first of all, congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you
This
very much.
Such a great opportunity for you, and they are getting top-notch worker, and I know you're going to do great stuff. But I told this story in the all staff for everyone at Fee, but I think this, for me, my first interaction with Jen was actually on an interview for a culture interview, which Fee does before they basically screen people before they even get to the serious parts of like, can you do the job? Can you actually fit in here? Yeah. And Jen was one of the team to interview me. And at the time I was living in Washington, D.C. I have a family of 2, and at this new organization that, okay, what are they about? So I got on this call with Jen and a couple of other people, and it was very clear very quickly that 1, they were competent, 2, they liked each other, 3, they cared about the same things that I care about, and 4, they liked working at Fee. So for me, it made me so much more comfortable. Like regardless of coming down here, seeing around the office, being able to talk to people and talk to Jen specifically, like you are one of the biggest reasons why I am here. But I'm sure, you know, a lot of time it's hard to see that, but that
I
interaction.
did not realize this until you mentioned it at the meeting, but it's that is a very touching story.
So I remember telling my wife that night, telling her about the interview, and I said, you know, everything, these people seem exactly where I want to be. So I just want to say thank you and excited for your future.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you so much again for helping make this whole experience at Fee just a very special one. This organization is always going to have a special place in my heart, and the people who work there are always going to have a special place in my heart as well. And thankfully, thanks to social media, we can stay in touch. So it's not like we're going to lose that friendship, I think.
So. And also now, so Connor, who will be your new boss,
yes,
is a friend. Really mutual friend. I mean, we've been friends with a lot of us for a long time. He's a great guy, and I talk to Connor a lot, and work out things with their organization from time to time. Now I'll just talk to you instead. So
hey.
I don't think there's going to be that much of a gap as far as that is concerned.
Probably not.
I'm really proud of you, and I'm excited for the whole thing. So it's pretty cool. But we'll take like the modeling down like a little bit, a couple notches, and go into. We've got 2 movies we want to talk about.
Yeah.
One for everybody, and then we've got a Patreon bonus that I think connects really nicely to this. So today on the show, if you haven't figured it out by the thumbnail or the title of the episode or the description, we want to talk about What We Do in the Shadows, which is a 2014 mockumentary. And it's, obviously there's a show now.
Yes.
It is, I saw this probably around 2014 or 2015, whenever it came out, and was sort of available to Americans because it's a New Zealand film. Mm-hmm. But it just immediately became one of my favorite things. I'm a big fan of Taika Waititi in general, and I'm a big fan of Jermaine Clement in general. Yeah. But this made me laugh so hard when we first saw it. And then to the extent that actually when they announced that they were going to do, and I told you guys this already, but when they announced that they were going to do a TV show, I was actually afraid. Like, I was bummed out because this was so good that, like, to do a TV show out of it made me nervous because I was like, well, you're just going to kind of ruin it.
Right.
But they didn't.
No, the show is fantastic.
The show is fantastic, and one of the reasons I attribute to that is that they did not try to make TV versions of the main characters in this. They just expanded the world to more vampires. And instead of being in New Zealand, like a little town in New Zealand, now they're in Staten Island.
Yeah.
Which is just as sort of dopey and funny and like kind of low rent as far as like their night out on the town and all of that kind of stuff is just the same level of kind of, I don't want to insult New Zealand, but it's just like they're kind of mediocre, like as individuals. They're cheap. They don't. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They have sheep.
They have sheep. They do have sheep. No, New Zealand is great. I'm not saying anything bad, but I'm saying like these vampires in particular, just kind of mediocre.
Yeah. They're just kind of there.
They're doing their best.
They're past their prime.
They're a little past their prime.
They're building up to their prime.
Maybe.
Have some emotional issues.
So,
do not understand the modern world at all.
Not even a little bit, which is hilarious, right? So it stars Jermaine Clement and Taika Waititi and Johnny Brew, and they're Vladislav the Poker, Jermaine Clement, which is phenomenal. I love, by the way, I hadn't seen this movie in a while, and I watched it, and they're trying to explain Facebook to him, and he's like, "Would you like to poke?" And he's like,
Oh,
yes.
Well, yes, I would.
Oh my goodness. Back when there was still a
poke feature.
A poke feature.
Yeah. Ridiculous stuff. Taika Waititi as Viago, who is a sort of a foppish
He's a dandy.
18th
He's a
century
dandy.
dandy, as he was called. Yeah.
And he's so concerned about keeping the furniture clean.
Yeah.
And he's always the one organizing the flat meetings. Be like, no, you really need to do the dishes, man. You haven't done the dishes in like 5 years.
5 years, yeah.
It's a
Although, why do you
problem.
have dishes?
You need something to drink the blood out of
I
when it's
suppose.
not within the
those
husk of a body.
those-
They have
those
some
dinner
dinner parties. You're right. They do have dinner parties where you put like SpaghettiOs on the tray.
Spaghetti.
All right, so we should probably try to explain this film a little bit, but it's a mockumentary. There's not much plot to it. It's just some guys who are flatmates who happen to be vampires, who are just kind of embarrassments to themselves and others, but they think they're great.
Right.
So there's no hint of irony to it. There's no hint of
No.
like sarcasm to it. It is just a great, like, there's nothing cynical. Oh, there's sarcasm, but there's
Well,
nothing
yeah.
cynical about it, right? Like, they are just funny characters, weird characters living their lives.
It feels very authentic.
Yeah.
Like nothing in that happens feels forced at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, well, what else would happen if you had
Yep.
a 300-year-old trying to figure out how to use a smartphone?
Yeah.
Like as much trouble as your dad has with
way worse.
like logging into his Wi-Fi network. I mean, imagine that times about 1,000. It's
Yeah.
just
So technically there's 4
Choice.
flatmates.
Yes.
There's those 3, plus there's Peter.
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 And Peter is a Nosferatu. He's thousands of years old. What do you say? 8,000 years old?
6,000.
6,000 years old?
Something
Very
like
old.
that.
Very old. Many thousands of years old.
Too many.
Too many. He's Nosferatu. He
Yes.
looks like Nosferatu. And that ties into the show, the movie that we're going to talk about later for the Patreon bonus. So if you're not a patron, do check this out. Check us out on patreon.com/outoframeshow because we do bonus episodes. Like after this one, we'll do a bonus on Shadow of the Vampire, which is another sort of, it's not really a comedy exactly,
No.
but it is kind of a funny movie about the, and it's one of my favorites actually, about the making of the movie Nosferatu by W.F. Murnau. It's one of, the 1920s silent era German filmmakers. But we'll get to that later. In the meantime, Peter is just living in the basement eating chickens, pretty much. So,
Yeah.
And
Not-
I guess
not
people also
saying
because he left
anything.
bones out there
Right.
on the thing. But it's, they don't keep their flat nice in any kind of good condition.
No.
They don't really, like, it's just, everything is just kind of gross and run down, and they don't clean anything because they're vampires and they shouldn't have to clean anything. There's also werewolves in this
Yes.
universe. The lead of whom of the werewolf group is played by Rhys Darby, who's one of my favorite comedians and just sketch comedy.
Werewolves, not
Genius.
swearwolves.
Werewolves. We're werewolves, not swearwolves. It's just
Why do you swear all the time? You need to stop that, man.
it's just the best.
Gosh.
If you guys have never seen the Rhys Darby show, please do. It is so damn funny. It is ridiculous. And he did a thing during all the quarantine stuff, which was what was it? Quarantine Ranger? What was that? It was like a park ranger who was like had to be quarantined with like 2 buddies basically.
Oh, no.
And it's just dopey Rhys Darby comedy. It's so good and funny and stupid. Just
All of the good
just
things.
adorable and wonderful. But also, I will say I've seen some of his stand-up specials, but they are strange. Like his sketch comedy, it's like structured, and it's a little bit office-y in nature, in that he is typically like he plays somebody who's a little bit oblivious to the world around him. But man, his stand-up, he's got a special I think on Amazon that is like about spaceships and aliens. It's very strange.
Okay, then.
Funny, but really off the wall. But that is kind of true of a lot of these guys. Like
Yeah.
Jermaine Clement stuff is
Oh, man.
super off the wall.
Flight of the Conchords.
Flight of the Conchords remains some of my favorite
Phenomenal.
comedy.
Yeah.
Like, it's just flawless.
It is fantastic, and yet also very weird.
Very.
But also, if you've seen Taika Waititi's other films, very weird.
Yep.
I mean, most people, Americans now, obviously know him from Thor and, you know, like Ragnarok, and like he's working on Love and Thunder right now, and Jojo Rabbit, which we did an Out of Frame episode on. But like if you've seen Hunt for the Wilder People, for example, like it's just a great
It's weird,
quirky movie that's just imbued with his like bizarre sense of humor, and it's just kind of wonderful. But this movie is too, and it was written and directed by the pair of them, so by Taika Waititi and Jermaine Clement. But oh man. Was this your first time seeing this?
This was my first time seeing it, and it was absolutely exactly what I expected it to be, which is not a bad thing because Jermaine Clement is hilarious. And it was probably better than I expected because it was, I think for me, it was, 2014. This is obviously on the rise of Taika Waititi.
Yeah.
This is before everything. Like he could not make this movie now. Unless he
now he could because now he has all the money in the world.
Yeah, now he can make whatever he wants.
You're true. That's true. Yeah. And I was like, okay, this could be.
But yeah,
this could be good. It's gonna be good, but it could be like on the.
Well, you never know, right?
Right.
Like especially with somebody who's like a much younger filmmaker at the time.
Yeah.
Well, it's not even that long ago, really, but
only 6 years.
But yeah,
but his career has skyrocketed.
Yes. Yes.
He's been very busy in those 6 years.
He sure has.
Yes.
For
and
sure.
Everything was just, the tone was hilarious. Every new thing they introduced, it's like you already know what vampires can do. They just make it funnier.
Yeah.
And
like
dumber
levitation,
in a lot of ways.
like the levitation powers while they're vacuuming.
Yeah, while they're vacuuming.
So they can get the molding on top of the walls.
One of the big plot beats in the film is that they invite people over, you know, to eat basically, and
For dinner,
right? And so one of them, this guy named Nick, he's Deegan's like familiar's ex-boyfriend,
Something like that, yeah. From many years
like
ago.
when they were 12.
Yeah.
Which is like part of why it's
ridiculous.
pretty ridiculous. Like she's basically finding people who she doesn't like, so she's calling up people who like were mean to her in grade school or whatever. But so he comes over and then he's running through the house. This is sort of the big like, scary moment at the beginning is like the people that are getting eaten, and it's all handheld because it's documentary, so it's all, you know, sort of running after him and whatever, and he goes out into the night and then gets caught by Peter.
Oh no, poor guy.
And which like the worst one you would think of as like the one you don't want to get eaten. But then he gets turned into a vampire instead. And then when he learns to fly, he's just going in through the window.
Just cause.
In the most awkward way.
Because flying is rad.
And Biaga's like, you just use the door. Like, why don't you just go in the door? And he's like, yeah, but I can fly. Like, why wouldn't I?
And his going around while they party is like, I am Twilight.
Yeah, just telling everybody he's a vampire.
Oh, I'm for sure
Twilight
a vampire.
Yeah.
That's me. That's Twilight.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it is ridiculous. I mean, these guys, I don't even know totally what to say about this film because like it's all just scenes and like pieces of like funny life moments and stuff. You know, they are constantly trying to get into bars except for they have to be invited in. So they can't.
Yeah.
They're trying to get bouncers to like actually literally invite them into the bar that they want to go to, but of course that's just weird and they won't do it.
One of my favorite things about this movie is like after Nick is turned into a vampire, he keeps bringing around his human friends.
Yeah, Stu.
And everybody likes Stu.
And better than Nick.
Better than Nick. Better than anybody. They're like,
pretty much.
Stu. Like he's everyone's favorite.
Which is also funny because Stu has almost no lines.
And
doesn't really do much.
So boring too. Like he's a super boring dude, but apparently amazing.
he did kill a vampire.
Well, yeah,
Well,
at some point, yeah, but it's yeah. So let's talk a little bit. I want to talk about the show a little bit too, just because
Yeah.
I've loved the show. Show's into its I guess it'll be its third season coming
Yeah.
up. I really thought that they were going to screw it up and not be able to make it. Now, first of all, Jermaine Clement and Taika Waititi are heavily involved in the show and writing the show, and I think they directed the first couple episodes as well. They've also been in the show. This is a little bit of a spoiler, but the things that they've done to take the idea and the concept of it and turn it into something that works well on episodic television.
Yeah.
First of all this works super well episodically anyway, because you can do any number of
Yeah.
It's just
you know,
a vampire
just
living life.
life
It's just
stuff,
life.
yeah.
Life stuff.
But the one addition that is just my favorite thing is Colin, the energy vampire,
Oh, yes.
because
He's outstanding.
Have you seen
he
the
I
works,
have not seen the show.
Okay.
He feeds on people's emotions.
Yeah.
And he works in a cube farm.
he's
a cubicle farm.
He's an office worker who works in that kind of an environment just so he can drain
Right now.
people dry by being obnoxious, talking to them about his weekend or like talking about
Like
how his
that nightmare coworker.
facts about model trains or whatever it happens to be, right? Just like, I'm gonna how you doing? Oh,
Where are you going?
It's Monday, you got a case of the Mondays there. I was like,
Yeah, pretty much.
and just annoy people.
Oh man.
And the people that he
Outstanding.
lives with hate him also, and he's like their fourth roommate that they don't invite to anything.
Literally anything.
Everything.
But he still manages to show up anyway.
Absolutely, but yeah, stuff like that is just so genius and
Mm-hmm.
so subtle and funny. I love stuff like that because it's so smart.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of what we were talking about with, some of the other comedies that we've talked about, even where it's like it's smart by being stupid. Like it's smartly written. It's really, really well crafted comedy centered around like the kind of the dumbest people, and it ends up being some of the funniest stuff you'll ever see.
This movie, I mean, obviously you could see it spinning off into
Yeah.
a TV series, but the world they didn't. So what I really appreciated is you already know everything about all of these supernatural creatures,
Yeah.
like werewolves, vampires, zombies. You don't need them to explain anything.
No.
And they don't.
And they don't try to. Yeah.
And it's just this world is lived in. This is their world, and it's very believable. Like you're just gonna walk around and see a pack of werewolves.
It's just and it plays on those tropes like vampires versus werewolves, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, your clique, your group of vampires, and they go by like, 6 werewolves or whatever.
Oh, it's
gonna go dead. Something's gonna happen here, and it's like it's gonna go down.
The Jets and the Sharks kind of vibe.
Jermaine Clement's like looking at the camera, going like, "Hey, there's some werewolves up here. Like,
Just keep walking.
just keep walking. It's gonna get real here in a second." He's just like,
And then he's the one who goes and
then
like antagonizes the pack.
he's
It's
the one that
so
antagonizes them.
great.
And also, again, Anton, who's Rhys Darby's character, is like, "Hey, man, like, we're just trying to, like," he's like, "Don't try to start anything." And he's like super nice, and he's still just being super antagonistic.
Yep.
To him. But yeah, I don't know. It's nice to do these episodes for me sometimes, just because it's good to like get out of, like, we talk about some heavy stuff, so
Yeah.
it's
Yes,
good to
we do.
occasionally bring in, like the last one we talked about with social dilemma or whatever.
Ooh, Lord.
Yeah, a lot of that. But
I wonder what kind
Pretty good
of
time.
regulation there is in the vampire world.
it doesn't
I
seem
don't
like a lot.
think that there is any. Based
Well, I
on
will
what
say
I have
there
observed.
there is a council of vampires
Oh, well, yes.
in the show that does seem to regulate some of their activities as far as like who they can
Eat.
and how public they can be about being vampires. And
I
things
am
like that.
it seems that it's mostly
Self-regulated.
concerning.
Yes.
It's very self-regulating.
Well, and everybody's
all
kind of
the,
inept, so
But all of the restrictions
It's not like-
concern secrecy and stuff like
yes,
that.
it's also not like True Blood,
No.
where the vampire council is very like a government. It's very like regimented,
Yeah.
sort of Vatican level, like.
Well, also in True Blood, the vampires are out of the coffin, as
Yeah,
it were, and
it's-
everybody
yeah.
knows about them.
Yeah, except for they're still like tightly controlled by their like,
Yeah.
I
They are.
don't know.
today is the first time I've ever heard the term "out of the coffin."
Well, all right. So now we're way on a tangent, but
Yeah.
like True Blood was created by. Sorry, this whole other thing. True Blood's created by Alan Ball, who's like is a gay guy and who like wanted True Blood to be like a parable about
Gotcha.
being gay. So like the
It's
whole
also
thing.
based on a series of books.
It is,
by
but
Charlene Harris that I totally read.
I think my understanding is he changed it a fair bit.
A bit, yeah.
But yeah.
There's some significant
Were the
changes,
books
but
like very did that have that same metaphor of like out of the coffin and being gay and that kind of thing?
they did use the term. Like the books
Yeah.
did use the term.
I know that's why
So-
Alan Ball wanted to make it. In any case, he wanted it to be like a allegory.
Yeah, there was.
do
I mean,
that,
there's.
but-
Yes, I'm just gonna
All
go
right,
ahead and say yes.
fine, cool. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, out of the coffin.
Interesting.
There you go.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah, but not as funny.
No,
Not as funny.
not as funny.
No. The movie that we paired this with, and we'll get into in just a few minutes here, Shadow of the Vampire also has a Peter-like vampire in it because it's actually about Nosferatu. So that's sort of the basis for like most of these vampire shows that we have. And Nosferatu is an interesting one, partly because, and both the things that we're going to talk about here in a minute are connected to this, because it's all sort of based on Bram Stoker's Dracula, except for because the estate would not allow the story rights to go to W.F. Murnau. He had to do a silent movie version of Dracula, but not call it Dracula, and modify the story sufficiently. So it became then the first vampire movie. You know, there's actually a movie, oh my gosh, I forgot the name of it. It's about witches that came a little bit before that, I think in 1915 or something like that. But 1922 is Nosferatu.
Yeah, and that was
that's
really the beginning of the horror genre
Oh, yeah.
for movies.
Yeah. And so all of these tropes for 100 years are, you know, baked into how we
Right.
interpret this mockumentary,
Yeah,
which is kind of cool.
it is cool.
I don't know. Anyway, any final thoughts on what we do in the shadows other than, guys, watch this movie. It's great.
It's such a funny movie, and it, despite the fact that it's about very foppish vampires living in mid-sized city New Zealand, it feels very relatable. Like they're dealing with some real life things. Like the dishes need to be done, guys. We need to vacuum up. We need to clean the bathroom. Like it's just a whole.
What do you wear when you can't look in the mirror?
Exactly. How do you do your
Core problem.
hair? If you can't look in the
Draw
mirror.
pictures of each other.
Draw pictures of each other.
It's just and like
Yeah.
stories of
Yeah.
love lost because their assistant put the wrong postage on the coffin before shipping it off.
Yeah. And you know what?
It's
That's
so funny.
I won't spoil like the very, very end of the movie, but there's Viago's character, as Jen was alluding to, is ended up in New Zealand because the love of his life moved to New Zealand, but then his assistant did not package his coffin correctly. And he ended up taking 1.5 years before he got to New Zealand. And then by that point, she was already married and with somebody else, and it was too late for him. But there is a very sweet undercurrent, which I think is part of why I at least really like Taika Waititi, because a lot of his movies, as goofy and silly and ridiculous as they tend to be, have that little bit of sort of romantic sweetness as an undercurrent that goes under all of it, which makes it just nice to watch, you know.
Right. Because these characters could easily, they are murdering vampires.
Yeah.
Yes.
So-
and they're a little bit obnoxious.
Yeah.
So they could be, Ricky Gervais level.
Right. Just don't like these people.
Yeah.
But that storyline definitely brought it back, and it's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
not
And
They're redeemable.
and
not too bad.
Vladislav and the Beast as well,
Yes.
to an extent.
Yes. All right. That's enough for this.
Highly
section.
recommend it.
Highly
Yes,
recommend.
100%.
But so that's it. That'll conclude this part of the episode. If you are a patron, stick around. We're going to talk about Shadow of the Vampire, which again is one of my favorite films. If you're not a patron, join us on patreon.com/outofframeshow. And, you can get bonus episodes like this. We've got some perks on the channel. You can see it there. If not, please check us out on Instagram and Twitter. And then, as always, check out our YouTube channel for Out of Frame. So with that in mind, patrons, stick around. Everybody else, thank you for watching or listening, and we'll see you next time.